Welcome to Sarah Wood's Tale. Where stories comes alive, please do well to hit that subscription button and turn on your notification bell for subsequent stories. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Olivia Parker's modest but neat home in Lagos. The air smelled faintly of bread from the nearby bakery, mixed with the sound of cars honking in the distance. Olivia stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, staring at her reflection. She was 34 years old, tall, elegant, with skin the color of polished bronze and eyes that always seemed to hold determination. Today was not just another day. It was the day her life was about to change. She touched her silk blouse nervously, then let out a soft laugh. How far I have come, she thought. Born to a petty trader mother and a fisherman father in a small riverside village, Olivia's childhood was painted with struggles. School fees had been a constant challenge. Many times she had studied under the glow of a kerosene lamp while her mother sold roasted corn late into the night. But she had always been determined. You must make something out of yourself, Olivia, her mother used to tell her. You must climb out of this life. And she had done exactly that. Through scholarships, resilience, and countless sleepless nights, Olivia became a banker in one of Nigeria's biggest financial institutions. Years of hard work, patience, and sacrifice finally earned her the role of regional head of operations, a position that came with prestige, money, and the respect she had dreamed of. She whispered to herself, almost like a prayer, "Mama, I made it." Just then, her husband, Daniel Parker, entered the room. He was handsome, charming, and a smooth talker, the type of man who could walk into a room and own it with his smile. He was once an ambitious entrepreneur who had opened several businesses, from a small logistics firm to an electronics shop. But none had survived. Now, it was Olivia's salary that kept their household afloat. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, watching her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You look beautiful, Liv," he said softly. Olivia turned and smiled at him, her heart swelling. "Thank you, Daniel. Can you believe it? They actually gave me the position. After everything, after all those years of people doubting me." He walked closer, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "Of course they gave it to you. You've worked like a horse for it. You deserve it." But inside, Daniel's thoughts were not so tender. He loved his wife, but her success often cast a shadow over his failures. People whispered that he lived off her, that he was Mr. Olivia instead of being his own man. The promotion, though he smiled about it, deepened that wound. Olivia, oblivious to his thoughts, leaned into him. "I want tonight to be perfect. I've invited everyone, colleagues, friends, even the directors. This is not just about me, Daniel. It's about us. We're finally moving forward." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Of course, darling. Tonight will be unforgettable." And indeed, it would be, though not in the way Olivia imagined. The ballroom of the Grand Crest Hotel in Victoria Island glittered under golden chandeliers. The air buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the rhythm of a live jazz band. Waiters in white gloves moved gracefully between tables, serving champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Olivia stood at the center of it all, radiant in a flowing emerald green gown that shimmered with every step she took. The color hugged her dark skin like royalty. She was the star of the evening, and everyone knew it. Olivia Parker, her colleague, Martha Collins, squealed as she ran up to her. Martha was one of Olivia's closest friends at the bank, known for her bubbly nature. She hugged her tightly. "My goodness, girl, you look like a queen. Congratulations." Olivia laughed, hugging her back. "Thank you, Martha. I still can't believe this is real." Another voice came, deep and booming. Mr. Thompson, one of the senior directors, raised his glass. "To Olivia, a true example of hard work and excellence. May we all learn from her dedication." The crowd cheered, and Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. She had dreamed of this moment, being celebrated not just as a hard-working employee, but as a leader, as someone who mattered. "Speech. Speech," the crowd chanted. Olivia smiled nervously, stepping forward to the microphone. Daniel stood a few steps behind her, clapping with everyone else, his face stretched in a practiced smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," Olivia began, her voice steady though her hands trembled slightly. I don't even know where to start. Standing here tonight, I feel overwhelmed with gratitude. This journey has not been easy. I come from a background where nothing was guaranteed, not food, not school fees, not even hope. But today, I stand here as proof that hard work, faith, and resilience can change a person's story. The crowd clapped. She turned her head briefly toward Daniel, smiling warmly. And to my husband, Daniel, thank you for standing by me. For believing in me when no one else did. This victory is ours. The audience clapped louder, but Daniel's jaw tightened ever so slightly. He raised his glass high, masking his emotions. The evening rolled on with dancing, laughter, and endless toasts. Olivia moved gracefully through the crowd, speaking with colleagues and family, receiving hugs and well wishes. She was glowing with happiness, but she noticed something. Daniel was quieter than usual. At one point, she found him standing alone by the drinks table, staring into his glass of wine. She walked up to him and touched his arm. Are you okay, love? She asked softly. Daniel snapped out of his thoughts and smiled. Of course, I am. Just proud of you, that's all. Olivia squeezed his hand. Then smile more. Tonight is for us. Daniel nodded, but as Olivia walked away to greet another guest, his smile faded. His mind churned with dark thoughts. Everyone praises her. Everyone looks at her like she's the star. What about me? Who am I now? Just the man who carries her bag. Just the husband of Madam Regional Head. He looked down at the glass in his hand, and his grip tightened around the stem. Across the hall, Martha leaned over to Olivia and whispered playfully, Your husband looks too serious tonight. You sure he's okay with all this attention you're getting? Olivia chuckled, brushing it off. Don't mind him. Daniel has always been like that. He doesn't like crowds. He'll be fine. But somewhere deep inside, a small unease pricked at her chest. The band started playing a love ballad, and couples took to the dance floor. Daniel finally walked back to Olivia, placing a hand on her waist. Shall we dance? He asked. Surprised but happy, Olivia nodded. Of course. They moved to the center of the floor, swaying gently to the rhythm. To everyone watching, they looked like the perfect couple, successful, beautiful, and deeply in love. But if one looked closely into Daniel's eyes, the bitterness hiding behind the smile would have been clear. As the song ended, Daniel bent close to Olivia's ear and whispered, Tonight, my darling, is truly unforgettable. Olivia smiled, taking his words as sweet affection. She had no idea of the storm about to break. The party was still in full swing, laughter and clinking glasses echoing across the ballroom. Olivia was enjoying the warmth of her colleagues' compliments when she noticed Daniel standing at the bar again. He had been quiet most of the evening, but something about his posture made her uneasy. She excused herself from a group of directors and walked closer, unnoticed at first. Daniel was holding a glass of red wine, staring at it as though it carried all the answers to his life. Then she saw it, his other hand moving quickly, as if slipping something small into her glass on the counter beside him. Olivia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Did he just? She blinked, trying to convince herself she was imagining things. Maybe it was just her nerves. Maybe she was reading too much into it. But the way Daniel's eyes darted around, checking if anyone was watching, sent a cold shiver down her spine. When he finally noticed her approaching, he forced a smile. Ah, there you are, Liv. I got us both wine. Let's toast to your success again. Olivia's heart was pounding. She glanced at the two glasses on the counter. One of them was hers, the one she suspected he had tampered with. Thank you, darling, she said calmly, though her hands felt weak. She reached for the glass he held out to her, then hesitated. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Don't you want to drink with me? She forced a smile. Of course, I do. As he turned slightly to wave at a guest across the room, Olivia acted fast. With a quick, smooth movement, she swapped the two glasses. Her fingers trembled, but her face stayed serene, as though nothing had happened. When Daniel turned back, she was already holding a glass confidently. Cheers, she said, clinking it against his. Cheers, he replied, eyes fixed on her as though waiting for something. Olivia lifted her glass to her lips but only pretended to sip, letting the liquid barely touch her mouth. Daniel, however, took a deep gulp of his. Seconds later, Olivia noticed a change. Daniel's confident smile faltered. His hand twitched slightly as he placed the glass on the counter. "Are you okay?" Olivia asked softly, masking her pounding heart. He tried to answer but his words slurred. I feel strange." And then, right before her eyes, Daniel staggered backward. "Daniel!" Olivia shouted, grabbing his arm. His knees buckled, and in a split second, his tall frame crashed onto the polished marble floor with a loud thud. The music stopped. Gasps filled the room. Guests rushed forward in confusion. "Oh my God!" someone screamed. He collapsed. Olivia knelt beside him, pretending to be horrified, though inside, her heart was a storm of fear and betrayal. He was going to poison me. And now? Daniel's face twisted in pain, his eyes rolling back. Foam began to form at the edge of his lips. "Call an ambulance," Olivia cried, her voice shaking. "Please, somebody help him." The crowd erupted in chaos. Within minutes, the once joyous ballroom turned into a scene of panic. Women screamed. Men shouted orders. The jazz band stopped playing altogether. Waiters dropped trays of glasses in the confusion, the sharp sound of breaking glass echoing across the hall. Two men from the bank rushed forward, trying to lift Daniel. He was still twitching violently, gasping for breath. "Move, move, make space," someone yelled. Olivia knelt beside him, clutching his hand tightly. "Stay with me, Daniel. Don't leave me." Her voice cracked, her face a mask of desperation. To everyone watching, she looked like a terrified wife. Only she knew the truth, that the drink in his system was meant for her. Martha, Olivia's close friend, knelt beside her. "What happened, Liv? Did he eat something bad? Did he drink too much?" I don't know," Olivia stammered, tears running down her cheeks. "He was fine just a moment ago. He just collapsed." The ambulance arrived quickly, sirens wailing outside the hotel. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. The guests moved aside, murmuring in shock. As they lifted Daniel onto the stretcher, Olivia clung to his arm. "Please, save him. Please," she cried. "Madam, we need space," one of the paramedics said firmly, guiding her gently back. Olivia nodded weakly, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Her colleagues and friends surrounded her, offering comfort, but their eyes were filled with questions. By the time the ambulance drove off, the whispers had already started. "Did you see the way she was looking at him?" someone muttered. "I heard he drank from her glass," another said. "No, I think it was his glass. But why would he suddenly collapse? Could it be poison?" The word poison spread like wildfire through the hall. Hours later, at St. Mary's Hospital, the waiting room was filled with tense silence. Olivia sat on one of the plastic chairs, her face pale and drained. Martha sat beside her, holding her hand. Finally, a doctor walked in, his expression grave. "Mrs. Parker?" Olivia shot to her feet. "Yes, doctor. How is he? Please tell me he's okay." The doctor sighed. "We managed to stabilize him for now, but the tests revealed something troubling. There was poison in his system." Gasps echoed through the waiting room. Olivia staggered backward, her hands flying to her mouth. "Poison?" Martha repeated, wide-eyed. "Are you saying someone tried to kill him?" The doctor nodded grimly. "Yes. It was deliberate. We'll need to report this to the authorities immediately." The words struck Olivia like a blow. She sank into her chair, trembling. Within minutes, police officers arrived, taking statements. One of them, Inspector Williams, leaned close to Olivia. "Mrs. Parker, we need to know everything. What did your husband eat or drink before he collapsed?" Olivia swallowed hard, choosing her words carefully. "We both had wine, but I don't know what happened. I don't know who would want to harm him." The inspector narrowed his eyes. "Some guests said the drink came from you. Did you hand it to him?" Olivia's heart raced. "If I tell them the truth, that he slipped something into my glass and I switched them, they won't believe me. They'll think I'm covering myself." What do I do? She shook her head. No, we just picked up glasses at the same time. I can't remember exactly. The whispers began again, louder this time. What if Olivia poisoned him? What if she wanted him gone now that she's successful? Olivia sat still, her mind spinning. She was trapped between her secret and the growing suspicion of everyone around her. For the first time in her life, the celebration of her success turned into the beginning of her greatest nightmare. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. Olivia sat in the police interrogation room, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. Her emerald gown from the party was wrinkled, her makeup smudged from tears, and her once confident eyes now looked hollow. Across from her sat Inspector Williams, a tall man with sharp features and a calm but probing gaze. His assistant, Sergeant Cole, scribbled notes in a worn-out pad. Mrs. Parker, Williams began slowly, we need you to tell us again, step by step, what happened before your husband collapsed. Olivia licked her dry lips. We were celebrating my promotion. Daniel and I went to the drinks table, we both had wine, then suddenly, he collapsed. The inspector's eyes narrowed. Some witnesses claim he drank from your glass. Did you give him your drink? Her heart skipped. If I tell them the truth, that he poisoned my glass and I switched, it will ruin everything. People will ask why my husband wanted me dead. They'll drag my name through mud. They'll say I provoked him, that our marriage was broken. My career, my reputation, everything will collapse. I don't remember clearly, she whispered, looking down. It was noisy, there were many glasses on the table. Maybe we just picked up different ones. Sergeant Cole leaned forward. Mrs. Parker, forgive me, but some of your colleagues suggested you might have had a reason to harm your husband. They said now that you're promoted, you don't really need him anymore. Olivia's head jerked up, eyes flashing with anger. That's a lie. Daniel is my husband. I would never do such a thing. The inspector studied her face carefully. Then tell me, do you know of anyone who might want him dead? Any enemies? Business rivals? Olivia hesitated. She thought of the strange phone calls Daniel had been receiving late at night. The whispered arguments in the living room when he thought she was asleep. But if she mentioned those, it might raise more suspicion on him, on her. She shook her head slowly. No, I don't know anyone. Inspector Williams leaned back in his chair, drumming his fingers on the table. Mrs. Parker, we will continue investigating. But until then, people will talk. This is a high-profile case. Your name is already in the newspapers. Her stomach clenched. Newspapers? He slid a folded copy of the evening paper across the table. On the front page was a bold headline. Banker's husband collapses at promotion party, poison suspected. Underneath was her picture from the party, smiling brightly in her emerald gown. The same picture that now made her look guilty. Tears stung her eyes. This is not fair, she whispered. Inspector Williams sighed. Life rarely is, madam. But truth has a way of finding its way to light. He stood up, signaling that the questioning was over for now. You are free to go, Mrs. Parker, but don't leave the city. We will be in touch. As Olivia walked out of the police station, flashes of cameras blinded her. Reporters shouted questions, their microphones thrust toward her face. Mrs. Parker, did you poison your husband? Why would you want him dead? Is it true your marriage was in trouble? Security officers pushed them back as Olivia forced her way through, her dignity shattering with each word thrown at her. Back home, she locked herself in her bedroom, trembling. Her phone buzzed endlessly, calls from colleagues, messages from family, even strangers on social media branding her a murderer. She buried her face in her hands and whispered, God, why is this happening to me? But deep inside, she knew the answer. Daniel had not only betrayed her love, he had almost destroyed her life. And now, she was forced to carry his secret while the world turned against her. The next morning, Olivia woke with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. She dragged herself out of bed and walked into Daniel's home office, a room she rarely entered. The air smelled faintly of stale coffee and dust. His desk was cluttered with papers, receipts, and unopened letters. She sat down and began going through them, her hands trembling. She needed answers. At first, it was ordinary utility bills, random receipts, old bank statements. But then, buried under a pile of papers, she found a thick brown envelope marked confidential. Her heart raced as she opened it. Inside were loan agreements, all signed by Daniel. The amounts were staggering, millions of naira borrowed from shady organizations she had never heard of. Each document had one thing in common, red stamps reading defaulted. She gasped. Oh my God! Beside the papers was a small black notebook filled with scribbled notes. Names. Phone numbers. Meeting times. Phrases like final warning, and they'll kill me if I don't pay. Her blood ran cold. So this is why he tried to poison me. He must have been desperate. Maybe he thought if I died, he would inherit my wealth and clear his debts. Or maybe someone else was forcing him to do it. She flipped through more files and found an email printout from a company threatening legal action. Another letter from a man simply signed KB demanding full repayment by the end of the month. Olivia sank back in the chair, clutching the papers to her chest. Everything began to make sense, the late-night calls, the nervous glances, the endless excuses about where he was going. He wasn't just unfaithful in love. He was drowning in debts and secrets. And those secrets had almost cost her life. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a call from Martha. She answered with a shaky voice. Olivia, are you okay? Martha asked gently. No, I'm not, Olivia whispered, staring at the damning papers. Martha, I think Daniel was hiding something. Big things. Dangerous things. What do you mean? I found loan documents. Huge amounts. From people I don't even know. And threats. He was in trouble, Martha. Deep trouble. There was silence on the other end. Then Martha said softly, Liv, maybe that explains everything. Maybe he wasn't the victim. Maybe he was the cause. Olivia closed her eyes. But how do I prove it without ruining myself? If I tell the police, they'll ask how I knew. They'll twist it. And if the press finds out, they'll say I married a criminal. Martha sighed. One thing is clear, you need to protect yourself. Whatever Daniel was involved in, you can't let it destroy you too. After the call, Olivia sat in the silence of the office, staring at her husband's secrets spread across the desk. For the first time, she didn't just feel like a betrayed wife, she felt like a survivor standing on the edge of a storm. She whispered to herself, Daniel, what have you done? The hospital corridors were quiet except for the occasional squeak of nurses' shoes and the beeping of machines from different rooms. Olivia sat in the waiting area, her hands folded tightly on her lap, her mind swirling with fear, betrayal, and exhaustion. Daniel was in the intensive care unit, fighting for his life, and the police still looked at her with suspicion. She was lost in thought when the sound of hurried footsteps made her look up. A young woman, no more than 26, came rushing down the corridor. Her long, straight hair framed a pale, anxious face. She was dressed in a fitted dress that clung to her curves, and she clutched a handbag as if it were her lifeline. Where is he? Where's Daniel? The woman cried, tears streaking her cheeks. Olivia frowned, confused. Daniel? Why is she calling him by his first name like that? The woman didn't even notice Olivia at first. She went straight to the nurse's station, her voice breaking. Please, I need to see Daniel Parker. He's my everything. Please tell me he's alive. The nurse glanced uncomfortably at Olivia before answering. He's in ICU. Only family is allowed. At that, the woman finally turned and saw Olivia. Their eyes locked. For a brief moment, silence hung between them like a thick cloud. Olivia stood slowly. And you are? The woman's lips trembled. She wiped her tears, then lifted her chin with surprising boldness. My name is Victoria Hayes. I'm Daniel's partner. Olivia blinked, her ears ringing. Partner? What do you mean by that? Victoria's eyes glistened with fresh tears. I mean I've been with him for 2 years. I love him. And I'm carrying his child. The words landed like thunder. Olivia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her chest tightened as though a giant fist had squeezed her lungs. You're lying, Olivia whispered, shaking her head. No, you're lying. Victoria stepped forward, pulling out an ultrasound picture from her purse with trembling hands. I wish I was lying. But I'm not. I'm 3 months pregnant, with Daniel's baby. Olivia stared at the picture, her vision blurring with tears. Her mind replayed moments that suddenly made sense, the late-night calls, his unexplained absences, the sudden coldness in his touch. All the pieces she had tried to ignore were falling together in the worst possible way. She let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a sob. So, all this time, while I was killing myself to build a future for us, he was building another life with you. Victoria's expression softened, but she didn't back down. I didn't mean to hurt you. But Daniel said, he said your marriage was broken. He told me you were too busy with your career, that you didn't give him the love he needed. Olivia's eyes blazed. Love? He said that to you? After everything I sacrificed for him? After carrying his failures, supporting him when his businesses fell apart, and keeping this marriage alive? He dared to say I didn't give him love? Her voice rose, causing nurses and patients nearby to glance their way. She quickly lowered it, though her whole body trembled with fury. Victoria looked down, ashamed. I didn't know the full truth. I only knew the man who told me he was unhappy. And now I'm carrying his child. I can't just walk away. For a long moment, Olivia said nothing. She turned and walked toward the window at the end of the hall, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her reflection in the glass looked like that of a broken woman, eyes red, shoulders slumped, her emerald gown now looking dull under the harsh hospital lights. How could Daniel do this to me? She turned back, her voice calmer now but cold. Listen to me, Victoria. I don't care what Daniel told you. You may think you know him, but you don't. You don't know the kind of man he truly is. That man in there, she pointed toward the ICU doors, is not just a victim. He is a liar, a cheat, and almost my killer. Victoria's brows knitted in confusion. What do you mean? Olivia almost told her the truth, that Daniel had poisoned her drink, that he was the reason for his own collapse. But she stopped herself. Victoria was already pregnant with his child. Dragging her into the darkness of Daniel's betrayal would serve no purpose. Instead, she simply said, stay close to him if you must. But don't ever think you've won. Because one day, the truth will catch up with him, and with you. Victoria looked shaken, but before she could respond, a nurse came out of ICU. Mrs. Parker, you may see your husband now. Only for a few minutes. Olivia straightened her back, wiped her tears, and walked past Victoria without another word. As she entered the ICU, her heart was no longer just heavy, it was shattered. The ICU room was dimly lit, filled with the steady beep of machines and the slow drip of 4 fluids. Daniel lay on the bed, pale and weak, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Tubes ran into his veins, and his once strong hands now looked frail against the white sheets. Olivia stood at the foot of the bed, her eyes burning as she watched him. Memories of their early love flashed in her mind, how he used to surprise her with little gifts when they were dating, how he once promised under the stars that he'd protect her forever. Those promises felt like ashes now. She pulled a chair closer and sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. For a while, she just stared at him, torn between anger and sorrow. Suddenly, Daniel stirred. His lips moved, whispering words too faint to hear. Olivia leaned closer. Daniel, can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open slightly, glassy and unfocused. His voice came in broken whispers. I just wanted to be free from her. Olivia's breath caught. Free from her? From me? She leaned closer, straining to catch every word. His eyes rolled, his head twitching weakly as he continued. She overshadowed me. Everyone loved her. No one saw me. I had to end it. Had to. A lump formed in Olivia's throat. He was confessing. In his delirium, he was admitting the truth that he had tried to kill her. Her hand trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. With shaky fingers, she pressed record and placed it on the bed near his lips. Tell me, Daniel, she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm in her heart. What did you try to do? His eyes flickered open again, filled with a mix of pain and bitterness. The wine. I put it in the wine. For her. For Olivia. Couldn't let her win. Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks as her phone captured every word. Her husband, the man she had built her life around, had just confessed to attempting her murder. She wanted to scream. She wanted to hit him, to shake him, to demand why. But instead, she sat frozen, listening as he mumbled incoherently again, drifting in and out of consciousness. When he finally went still, breathing softly again, Olivia picked up her phone and stopped the recording. She stared at the screen, the evidence glowing back at her. Her mind raced. This is it. This is the proof I need. If I give this to the police, they'll know I'm innocent. They'll know I didn't poison him. But, what happens then? What happens to me, to my career, to my reputation? The world will know my husband tried to kill me. They'll see me as a woman so unloved that her husband wanted her dead. They'll pity me, maybe even mock me. And his family. Oh God, his family will tear me apart. She pressed the phone against her chest, her sobs muffled. What do I do? She whispered into the empty room. The door creaked open slightly, and she quickly wiped her tears. It was a nurse checking in. Olivia forced a smile. His resting now. The nurse nodded and left, leaving her alone with Daniel once again. Olivia looked at him, her heart torn in two. She had the evidence. She had the truth. But using it would change everything. As she stood to leave, she whispered to his unconscious form, "You tried to bury me, Daniel. But remember this. I'm still alive. And one day, the world will know the man behind the mask." She slipped out of the ICU, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, carrying a secret recording that could either save her, or destroy everything she had worked for. The fluorescent lights in the interrogation room flickered faintly, casting harsh shadows across Olivia's tired face. She sat on a metal chair, her hands clenched in her lap, her eyes bloodshot from days of little sleep. Across from her, two detectives studied her like hawks circling prey. Detective Harris, tall and stern, leaned forward with his elbows on the table. Beside him sat Detective Cole, a younger officer with sharp eyes and a notebook in his hand. "Mrs. Parker," Harris began, his voice slow and deliberate. "We've gone through the reports. Poison in your husband's system. The poison was in your wine glass. Witnesses confirm you were the one drinking from it. Except," he paused, letting the silence cut into her. "You didn't fall. Your husband did." Olivia swallowed hard, her throat dry. "I don't know what happened. I was drinking, he was drinking, then suddenly he collapsed. That's all." Cole tapped his pen against the notebook. "That's not all. Let's think this through. You just got promoted, a huge promotion, correct? Meanwhile, your husband has no career, no real income. He depends on you. If he disappears, your life becomes easier. Your career soars without baggage. That's motive." Olivia's eyes widened with disbelief. "You think I wanted him gone? That I poisoned him to enjoy my promotion in peace?" Harris leaned closer. "Tell us the truth, Olivia. Did you switch glasses? Did you make sure he drank the poison instead of you?" Her heart thundered in her chest. The truth screamed inside her, "Yes, I switched the glasses. But I did it to save my life, because he tried to kill me." Yet her lips refused to part with the words. Saying it aloud would mean opening a door she wasn't ready for. "I didn't poison my husband," she said firmly, forcing calm into her trembling voice. "I love my career, but I wouldn't trade my marriage for it. Whatever you think happened, I'm innocent." The detectives exchanged glances, their skepticism clear. Cole scribbled something in his notebook before asking, "Then who did it? Who would want your husband dead?" Olivia lowered her gaze. "Should I tell them the truth? Should I tell them about Victoria, about the debts, about Daniel's confession?" But the image of Daniel's family attacking her name flashed in her mind. If she spoke too soon, she would look like a desperate wife trying to frame her husband. "I don't know," she whispered instead. But it wasn't me. The questioning dragged on for hours. Every detail of her marriage, every disagreement, every financial strain was picked apart. By the time Olivia was released, She felt stripped of dignity, like a criminal rather than a victim. Back at the hospital, Daniel's family crowded the hallway. His mother, a woman with sharp cheekbones and a voice that carried, spotted Olivia approaching and immediately hissed, "There she is, the woman who tried to kill my son." Heads turned. Olivia froze. "Mother, please," she said softly. "I didn't." But Daniel's younger sister, Patricia, cut her off. "Don't you dare call her mother. You don't deserve to. You've been nothing but trouble in Daniel's life. Now that he's finally in the hospital fighting for his life, you want to play innocent." Olivia's chest tightened. "I love Daniel. Why would I want to harm him?" Patricia stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "Because you couldn't stand the fact that you're now richer, more powerful, and he's just a failure in your shadow. You wanted him gone. Admit it." Olivia shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "That's not true." Daniel's mother spat on the floor near Olivia's feet. "You wicked wife. You Jezebel. You'll get what's coming to you." The words cut deep. Strangers stared at her, whispering. Some of Daniel's relatives pulled the grieving mother back, but the damage was done. Olivia stood frozen, humiliated in public by the very people she had once called family. The next morning, Olivia walked into her office building with heavy steps. The promotion she had worked her whole life for should have been her joy, her triumph. Instead, she was met with stiff stares and whispered gossip as colleagues watched her pass. At the top floor, she was called into the boardroom. Her boss, Mr. Raymond, sat with two other executives. Their expressions were grave. "Olivia," Raymond said gently, "we need to talk about the situation." She sat, her stomach sinking. "We know you've been a brilliant employee," another executive said. "Your work speaks for itself. But with the current investigation, the bank's image is at risk. Until things are clarified, the board has decided to place you on suspension." Olivia's chest ached. "Suspension? But I've done nothing wrong. This is my life's work. You can't." Raymond held up a hand. "This is not permanent. But the media is already circling the story. Promoted banker poisons husband, that's not the kind of headline we can risk." Her voice broke. "So I'm guilty until proven innocent. That's it." He looked away. Sometimes perception matters more than truth. Olivia felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her. First the police, then Daniel's family, and now even her career, the one thing she thought she could rely on, was slipping away. She walked out of the boardroom with tears sliding silently down her face. The whispers of her colleagues followed her like knives in the back. For the first time in her life, Olivia Parker felt completely alone. The apartment felt colder than usual when Olivia returned that night. She dropped her handbag on the sofa and collapsed into a chair, her body heavy with despair. Silence surrounded her, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. She stared blankly at the wall, her mind replaying the nightmare of the past days, the police questions, Daniel's mother calling her a murderer, the executive suspending her. She thought of her younger self, the girl who grew up in poverty, dreaming of becoming someone powerful, someone respected. She had fought through sleepless nights, endless exams, and the ridicule of those who said a poor girl could never rise. She had proved them all wrong. And yet here she was, humiliated, accused, betrayed. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed until her chest hurt. "Why, God? Why me? Haven't I worked hard enough? Haven't I suffered enough?" Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Patricia. Which? "May God punish you for what you did to my brother." Olivia threw the phone aside and screamed into the empty room. "I didn't do it." Her voice echoed off the walls, mocking her loneliness. She rose and walked to the mirror. Her reflection looked like a stranger, a broken woman with swollen eyes and trembling lips. She whispered to herself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I am wicked. Maybe I bring pain wherever I go." Her knees buckled, and she slid to the floor, hugging herself tightly. For hours she stayed there, caught between anger and despair, between wanting to fight and wanting to give up. But somewhere deep inside, a spark flickered. A faint voice whispered, "No. This isn't the end. You are Olivia Parker. You've come too far to fall now." She wiped her tears slowly, lifting her chin. I didn't poison Daniel. I didn't destroy my marriage. He destroyed it. He tried to kill me. And I will not let him bury me. Her eyes hardened in the mirror. If the police want to see me as guilty, I'll find proof. If his family wants to call me wicked, I'll show them the truth. If my company doubts me, I'll make them regret it. She stood tall, her back straight. The woman who had walked into the apartment defeated was no longer the same one who looked into the mirror now. I will fight, she whispered with new strength. Not just for my name, not just for my career, but for my life. And in that moment, Olivia crossed from brokenness into resolve. The battle for her truth had only just begun. The night was heavy with rain. Olivia hurried down the quiet street after leaving the grocery store, clutching a paper bag close to her chest. Her mind was already restless, replaying the humiliation at work and the whispers of the police. Then, out of nowhere, two men stepped out from the shadows of an alley. Mrs. Parker, one of them called in a deep, rough voice. Olivia froze. The taller man, with a scar running down his cheek, walked toward her. The other, shorter but muscular, cracked his knuckles. Her stomach tightened. Who are you? Scarface gave a crooked smile. We're friends of your husband, Daniel Parker. He owes us a lot of money. Olivia's throat went dry. Money? What money? The shorter man stepped closer. Don't play dumb. Millions. He borrowed, he lost, and now he's in the hospital. So guess who's left to pay? I don't have anything to do with his debts, Olivia said, her voice trembling. Scarface grabbed her arm, squeezing hard. You're his wife. His success is your success. His failure is your problem. Olivia's heart raced. She tried to pull away. Please. I don't have that kind of money. The shorter man leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. Then maybe we take something else. A little reminder. He pulled out a knife. Olivia gasped, panic flooding her chest. Her bag dropped, groceries spilling into the puddles. She struggled, screaming, help. Somebody, help. A car suddenly turned the corner, headlights sweeping the street. The men cursed and shoved her hard against the wall. Scarface jabbed a finger at her chest. You've got 1 week, Mrs. Parker. 1 week to find the money. Or next time, we won't just scare you. They disappeared back into the alley, leaving Olivia shaking, her heart pounding like a drum. She slid down the wet wall, gasping for air. Her hands trembled as she gathered her spilled groceries with tears blurring her eyes. So this is what Daniel left me with. A ruined marriage, suspicion from the police, suspension at work, and now loan sharks ready to destroy me. As she got home, Olivia locked the door, dropped the groceries, and collapsed on the couch. She buried her face in her hands, whispering, he didn't just betray me. He almost killed me, and now he's dragging me into his debts. For the first time, she realized, if I don't fight back, Daniel's destruction will swallow me whole. The next morning, Olivia sat at her dining table with her phone in her hand. The recording of Daniel's hospital bed confession played softly again. The wine. I put it, in the wine. For her. For Olivia. Couldn't, let her win. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with new fire. This ends today, she whispered. She created a new email account under a fake name and uploaded the recording. Then, with careful words, she sent it to 2 major newspapers and 1 popular blog. Anonymous source, recording of Daniel Parker, husband of banker Olivia Parker, confessing to poisoning attempt. Her finger hovered, then she pressed send. Her chest heaved. The secret was no longer hers alone, it was now in the hands of the world. 2 hours later, her phone exploded with calls and messages. News alerts flashed across every channel. Breaking, banker Olivia Parker's husband confesses to poison attempt. Talk shows replayed the audio clip. Social media lit up with hashtags #JusticeForOlivia, #PoisonConfession, #Olivia the Survivor. At first, people were shocked. Then slowly, sympathy shifted. She almost died, one commentator said on TV. This woman is not a murderer, she's a victim. Another chimed in, and imagine, she kept quiet all this time to protect her husband's dignity. That's strength. But Olivia wasn't done. She visited her lawyer, Mr. Blake, a sharp, grey-haired man who listened carefully as she explained everything: Daniel's debts, the mistress, the threats. Mr. Blake leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Parker, your husband is in deeper trouble than you thought. Not only attempted murder but financial fraud. These loan sharks he dealt with, if we trace the transactions, we can expose it all." Olivia nodded, her jaw set. "Do it. I want the truth out." Later that evening, another bombshell hit the media. Documents leaked: Daniel Parker's failed businesses, unpaid loans, and shady dealings with underground lenders. Reporters swarmed outside the hospital, demanding answers. Meanwhile, Olivia sat at home, watching the tide turn. Messages from strangers poured in. "Stay strong, Olivia. We believe you. Don't let them silence you." For the first time in weeks, she smiled faintly. But deep down, she knew the battle wasn't over. The loan sharks still lingered, Daniel's family still hated her, and the police weren't finished. Yet for the first time since that cursed night, Olivia Parker felt power stirring inside her again. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, staring at the city lights outside her window. "If Daniel tried to destroy me, I'll make sure the world sees the man he really is." The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the gallery, cameras flashed outside, and the air buzzed with tension. Olivia Parker sat at the defense table beside her lawyer, Mr. Blake. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face was calm, composed. Across from her, Daniel Parker sat in a wheelchair, his body still weak from the poison. His once confident smile was gone, replaced by a pale, bitter glare. The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched on her nose, banged the gavel. "Court is in session." The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor, the state brings charges of attempted murder against Daniel Parker. We will prove that Mr. Parker intentionally poisoned his wife's drink in an effort to kill her. However, in a twist of fate, he consumed the poisoned wine himself. His actions not only endangered Mrs. Parker but also exposed his long history of fraud and deceit." Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Olivia sat still, her heart pounding. Mr. Blake rose smoothly. "Your Honor, we intend to show that Mrs. Parker was not only innocent but also the true victim of her husband's greed, infidelity, and betrayal." The judge nodded. "Proceed." The first evidence presented was the recording, Daniel's hospital bed confession. The courtroom went silent as his weak voice played through the speakers. "The wine. I put it in the wine. For her. For Olivia. Couldn't let her win." Gasps filled the air. Olivia looked down, blinking back tears, as strangers in the gallery murmured about Daniel's cruelty. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, sweat on his brow. His lawyer objected, but the judge waved it off. The confession stands. Next came Victoria Hayes, Daniel's mistress. She sat nervously on the witness stand, her hands clutching her stomach protectively. She was visibly pregnant, her face pale under the courtroom lights. The prosecutor asked, "Miss Hayes, did Daniel Parker ever speak to you about his marriage?" Victoria hesitated, glancing at Daniel. His eyes burned into hers, silently commanding her to stay quiet. "Yes," she said softly. The prosecutor leaned in. "What did he tell you?" Tears filled Victoria's eyes. "He said he couldn't take it anymore. That Olivia was too successful. That she made him feel small. He told me he would end things soon so he could start a new life with me and our baby." Gasps erupted again. Olivia felt her heart twist, but she forced herself to stay composed. The prosecutor continued, "Did he ever mention how he planned to end things?" Victoria sobbed quietly. "Yes. He said he would poison her. That it would look like an accident. He even laughed about how people would pity him as the grieving husband." Daniel slammed his fist weakly on the table. "Lies. She's lying." The judge banged her gavel. "Order in the court." Victoria broke down, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't want to say it, but it's the truth. He wanted Olivia gone. He told me himself." Olivia closed her eyes, the weight of betrayal crushing her, but also a strange relief flooding through her. Finally, the truth was out before the whole world. The final blow came when Mr. Blake presented the financial documents, Daniel's loans, gambling losses, and deals with loan sharks. Your Honor, Blake said firmly, Daniel Parker was drowning in debt. His only way out was to cling to his wife's success or eliminate her so he could inherit her assets. This was not the act of a desperate man in love, but of a selfish man blinded by greed. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge's face was unreadable as she looked at Daniel. When asked to testify in his own defense, Daniel shook his head, glaring at Olivia. This is all her fault. If she hadn't chased money, if she hadn't made me feel like nothing, I wouldn't have done this. She killed me long before I touched that wine. Olivia finally spoke, her voice steady. No, Daniel. You killed yourself. With your lies. With your choices. With your hate. The judge banged the gavel again. Silence. By the end of the session, the evidence was overwhelming. The judge announced, the court finds Daniel Parker guilty of attempted murder, fraud, and financial misconduct. Sentencing will follow. This court is adjourned. Olivia exhaled shakily as the gavel fell. Tears welled in her eyes, but for the first time in weeks, they were tears of release. The truth had spoken. The news spread like wildfire. Daniel Parker found guilty in poison case. Banker's husband exposed as cheat, fraud, and attempted killer. The once respected man was now the face of disgrace. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Olivia, but for once, their questions were not accusations, they were sympathy. Mrs. Parker, how do you feel? Do you plan to rebuild your career? What would you say to women going through betrayal like this? Olivia smiled faintly and answered softly, I would say, no matter who tries to silence you, the truth always has a voice. And no matter how dark it gets, light will come. Meanwhile, Daniel's world collapsed. His creditors stormed the hospital, demanding their money. His accounts were frozen. His businesses dissolved overnight. Victoria, once by his side, visited him one last time. He reached for her hand, his voice pleading. Victoria, don't leave me. You're all I have now. She pulled her hand back, tears in her eyes. I thought you loved me. But you only loved yourself. You put my baby at risk with your lies. I can't raise a child with a man who tried to kill his wife. Victoria, please. But she walked away, her heels clicking on the tile floor, leaving him alone in his wheelchair. Daniel collapsed back, his face twisted with rage and sorrow. For the first time, he realized he had lost everything. Olivia, on the other hand, slowly began to heal. 1 week later, she received a letter from her bank. She was reinstated not just as a manager, but promoted again to an even higher position. The board admired her strength, her resilience under fire. On her first day back, her colleagues greeted her with applause. One whispered, "You showed us what it means to fight with dignity." Olivia smiled humbly, tears brimming. For once, the respect in their eyes wasn't just for her work, but for her courage. At home, she stood by the window, watching the Lagos skyline glow in the night. Her heart was still scarred, but it beat stronger than ever. She whispered to herself, "Daniel tried to break me. But I survived. And I will rise higher than he ever imagined." The hall shimmered with soft golden lights, crystal glasses gleamed on neatly set tables, and the sound of gentle music floated in the background. Unlike the last time Olivia Parker had stood before a crowd in such a hall, tonight was different. There was no cloud of suspicion hanging over her head. No whispers questioning her loyalty or her worth. Tonight, the people had gathered to celebrate her not just as a banker, not just as a professional, but as a woman who had endured fire and walked out stronger. It was an evening organized by the bank and supported by several women's organizations. The theme was bold, written in bright letters across the banner behind the stage. The woman who lived. Olivia stood near the stage, dressed in a graceful but simple gown. She had refused the flashy, extravagant look. Tonight was not about glitter. Tonight was about truth. Her colleague, Mr. Blake, the lawyer who had stood by her, approached with a smile. "Are you ready?" Olivia exhaled slowly, her fingers brushing the stem of her wine glass. "I don't know if anyone can ever be ready for this. But I'll try." He touched her shoulder lightly. You've already done the hardest part. Tonight is just the celebration. When the time came, the host called her name. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Olivia Parker, the woman who stood tall when the storm came, and the woman who lived to tell her story. Thunderous applause filled the room. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even shouting her name. Olivia walked to the stage, her step steady, her chin lifted. She paused for a moment, scanning the crowd, faces of colleagues, friends, women she didn't even know but who had come to honor her strength. For a second, her throat tightened, but then she smiled. Good evening, everyone. Her voice was calm but firm. Thank you for being here tonight. Honestly, if you had told me a year ago that I would be standing here like this, I would never have believed you. The hall fell quiet as she began. I stand before you, not as a perfect woman, not as someone who had an easy life, but as someone who survived. Some of you know my story, some of you only know bits and pieces. But let me tell you, there was a time when I thought my life was finished. I thought the betrayal, the shame, the accusations would bury me forever. I thought I would never stand tall again. She paused, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to shed. But I learned something in the darkest nights of my life. I learned that sometimes strength is not about fighting with your fists, or shouting the loudest. Sometimes strength is simply choosing to live when everything in you wants to give up. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. From the front row, a young woman raised her hand timidly. Mrs. Parker, may I ask a question? Olivia nodded warmly. Of course. The girl stood, her voice trembling. How did you keep going, when everyone seemed to be against you? Olivia smiled softly. I asked myself the same question many times. The truth is, I kept going because I remembered who I was before the pain, before the lies. I remembered the little girl from a small African town who dreamed of working in a big bank. I remembered the young woman who stayed up late studying by candlelight because there was no electricity. I remembered that I had already survived so much to get here. And I told myself if I survived then, I can survive now. The girl wiped her eyes and sat down, inspired. Olivia lifted her glass of wine, holding it high. Tonight, I want to make a toast. Everyone raised their glasses, waiting. Her voice grew stronger. To strength, not the kind that comes from never falling, but the kind that comes from rising again after you fall. To survival, not the kind that leaves you bitter, but the kind that makes you wiser. And finally, she paused, her eyes scanning the hall with meaning, to knowing when not to drink from the wrong glass. There was a stunned silence, and then the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Some laughed through tears, understanding the weight behind her words. Others nodded solemnly, recognizing the depth of her journey. Olivia let the cheers wash over her, her smile radiant but calm. This was not the smile of a woman trying to prove herself. This was the smile of a woman who had already proven enough. Later, after the formalities, people gathered around her. Mrs. Parker, you've inspired me so much, one woman said. You're proof that we can survive anything, another added. A man shook her hand firmly. You showed us that dignity and truth always win in the end. Olivia thanked each one with humility, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and peace. As the night drew to a close, Olivia slipped out to the balcony overlooking the Lagos skyline. The city lights twinkled like stars below, the air warm and alive. Mr. Blake joined her quietly. You know, he said, tonight was more than a celebration. It was a new beginning. Olivia nodded. Yes. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. He smiled. And what comes next for Olivia Parker? She looked out over the city, her eyes shining with determination. Whatever I choose. Because now I know I can survive anything. I am not just the woman who worked hard. Not just the woman who was betrayed. I am the woman who lived. She raised her glass once more, this time only to herself, and whispered, here's to tomorrow. And with that, Olivia Parker stepped into her new life, not as a victim, not as a survivor only, but as a woman reborn. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Your support is what keeps this stories alive. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to get more interesting stories like this.